Good evening. First up tonight on News 4 I-Team investigation, a high school teacher arrested and charged for what he did in his classroom.
Then a disturbing past revealed. It's never been made public until now. Uncovered by Scott McFarland and our I-Team.
Inside Randallstown High School, Baltimore County. Brad Norton taught English. And one morning, 4 years ago this week, a 10th grade student said Norton sexually assaulted him inside the classroom. According to the police report, the 15-year-old said Norton touched him on the chest, beneath his shirt, then touched his penis. Arrested, booked, charged, Norton pleaded guilty to assault and a fourth-degree sex offense in court. The victim's father, whom we're not identifying, said the case had an enormous impact on their family.
Unfortunately, I think people naively assume that educators are there to protect our kids, and, far too often we see they're not.
Jennifer Alvaro is a Maryland community activist who counsels sex offenders and has pushed for tougher background checks on educators.
Abuse is relentlessly democratic. It happens in all socioeconomic classes, all races, all religions, all neighborhoods, all education levels.
Thing is, this was no common case, and Brad Norton was no common teacher. He had a secret down the road in Virginia. A secret now being made public by the I-Team. In 2004, he was teaching English here, Hayfield Secondary, Fairfax County Public Schools, but only briefly, because in 2004, he was arrested. And we found the details are strikingly similar. According to school district records, Norton was accused of rubbing his hands over a student's penis and touching the boy's buttocks while in his classroom. Arrested, booked, charged, Fairfax County Schools allowed Norton to resign. He pleaded guilty to assault, avoided jail time, but was ordered not to work again in a job in which he'd interact with children. In this document obtained by the News 4 I-Team, Fairfax County Public Schools formally notified Norton it would recommend the state education department revoke his teaching license. Doing so would help red flag Norton nationwide in a database called NASDAQ. His license revoked, he'd be unable to work at public schools, not just in Virginia, but other states too. Yet Norton managed to get that teaching job years later in Baltimore County. How? David Foster is former president of the Virginia State Board of Education, which votes to revoke licenses.
Something went wrong for this to happen because the whole system is designed to prevent this happening.
The I-Team found answers inside internal school district memos and emails, which show Fairfax County Public Schools failed to follow through. Failed to send the necessary paperwork to suspend Norton's license to the State Department of Education in Richmond, the agency charged with formally revoking the licenses. The State Department of Education even sent this reminder letter and a handwritten note in March 2005, which said no action, no license revocation can occur until Fairfax sends over the necessary paperwork. The state has to get notification from the school district.
Correct.
The state says it received no written response. So Norton's license remained intact, and he was not red flagged, not immediately disqualified before he applied for the job in Baltimore County. After Norton's arrest in Baltimore County in 2012, that school district called Fairfax with questions about their former teacher. Shortly after, a Fairfax County schools administrator wrote this email obtained by the I-Team to the Virginia Department of Education asking, "Can you advise if you have any record of a license cancellation for Bradley Jefferson Norton? It is not listed on the agency website." A state administrator wrote back, "No, it was not received, and it would need to be submitted to us by the school division," meaning by Fairfax County Schools.
I'll entertain a motion to revoke the license of Bradley Jefferson Norton. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Not until 2013, 9 years after his arrest there, did Fairfax Schools finally submit the necessary paperwork to the state board to revoke Brad Norton's teaching license. Fairfax County Public Schools declined to answer questions about why Brad Norton slipped through the cracks, instead sending us a statement that, for legal reasons, it can't comment on specific personnel matters and that it's since changed the process it uses for teacher license revocations and now files all of the necessary paperwork to revoke a license in an expedited manner. For weeks, we tried to talk to Brad Norton, but no one answered the door inside his Washington, D.C. home. By phone, he declined to comment. Jennifer Alvaro says she worries his case won't be the last of its kind.
Local communities, you're arguing, sometimes drop the ball.
Frequently drop the ball.
Just don't do what they're supposed to do.
Correct.
Virginia law has since changed. The state education department needn't wait for a school district to send in paperwork to revoke a teacher's license anymore if it knows of a potentially dangerous teacher. But because Fairfax County Schools refused to answer our questions about what went wrong in 2004, we're going to keep checking to see if there are other similar cases yet to be discovered. We've also created an interactive timeline of this intricate case. You can see it in our NBC Washington app. Jim and Doreen.
A Fairfax County School Board member has launched a formal review of how often the district has sought to revoke the licenses of problem teachers. It's a response to a story our Scott McFarland and the I-Team broke last night. Scott.
Yeah, Chris, the I-Team found a former Fairfax County high school English teacher pleaded guilty to assaulting a student but escaped losing his teaching license because Fairfax County schools failed to send in the necessary paperwork to state officials, allowing that man to find a new teaching job in another district and find another victim. Police first arrested Brad Norton in 2004 after a student at Hayfield Secondary School in Alexandria accused him of sexual assault in the classroom. Within weeks, he was charged, pleaded guilty to assault, and agreed to quit his job. But Fairfax schools never followed through when it came time to have Norton's license revoked. So rather than being disqualified from entering a classroom again, Norton managed to land a new teaching job at Randallstown High School in Baltimore County, where in 2012 he was arrested again, accused of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old. He pleaded guilty to a sex offense in that case. Fairfax County Public Schools declined to answer our questions about how Norton slipped through the cracks, saying for legal reasons it couldn't comment on personnel matters. Today, Board of Education member Elizabeth Schultz asked for a formal review and formal count of all teacher license revocations the district has sought since 2000. Schultz says the data will show if there were years in which there were gaps or trends, years in which license revocations dipped significantly.
If parents are sending their children to school, they need to think that, we've done our due diligence, that they're safe, and that if anything leads to the separation of a teacher, that there is the natural follow-through.
A timetable to complete the review is unclear, but a former Virginia State Board of Education president said the I-Team's findings are an indication something went wrong in the system that handled Brad Norton's case. Fairfax County Public Schools says it has changed its system for license revocation since 2004 and processes the paperwork in an expedited manner. But because the district won't say what went wrong in Brad Norton's case, we will keep checking to see if other teachers slip through the cracks.
Fairfax County's outgoing school superintendent says she's confident no other teachers who have engaged in misconduct have fallen through the cracks there. This comes 2 weeks after the News 4 I-Team revealed the school district failed to ensure one of its teachers had his license revoked after he was arrested for sexually assaulting a student. Scott McFarland joins us tonight with the new reaction. Scott?
Well, Doreen, our investigation found former Hayfield secondary teacher Brad Norton lost his job in 2004 just after his arrest, and he pleaded guilty to a charge of assault then. Fairfax County Schools notified Norton then and state officials it was going to ask the Virginia Department of Education revoke Norton's license. But our investigation found the county failed to follow through, failed to do so, which means Norton kept his license intact and managed to find a new teaching job in Baltimore County, where a few years later he pleaded guilty to a sex offense against another student. When we first asked Fairfax County Schools how a mistake like this was made, the district declined to comment, saying due to legal reasons it couldn't comment on personnel matters. But in this sit-down interview today between Superintendent Karen Garza and our David Culver, we asked if Fairfax's handling of the Brad Norton case was acceptable.
My goodness, absolutely not. And in fact, since I've been here, the minute we have any kind of challenge with any of our employees, which thankfully is very rare, we have great employees, but occasionally we'll have a situation, we hold them accountable and we turn them over to the VDOE to have their license revoked.
The case in question occurred before Garza became superintendent in Fairfax. After our investigation first aired 2 weeks ago, a Fairfax County School Board member asked for a formal review of the district's teacher license revocations back to 2000, in part, she said, to help ensure no one else fell through the cracks. More of David's interview with Karen Garza and the news she's making in her final weeks on the job coming up here in just a few minutes. In the meantime, to see our full investigation, go to our NBC Washington app and look for investigations. Scott McFarland, News 4 IT.
A local school district drops the ball again. Weeks ago, we told you about a teacher who admitted to assaulting a student who escaped with his teaching license intact and then found a new job in a different district and struck again.
Fairfax County Public Schools told the News 4 I-Team there were no other licenses in question like that, but The I-team found that's not the case.
Tonight, Scott McFarland uncovers other teachers accused of sexual misconduct whose licenses languished for years.
To protect his daughter's identity, Richard asked we not show his face.
I feel there's an institutional pattern to sweep it under the table.
His daughter went to West Potomac High in 2005 and reported to school officials her teacher touched her inappropriately, groping her buttocks 10 times. 2 of her classmates accused the teacher too.
She had the least of the problems with the guy. Her friends got it worse.
A school district memo obtained by the News 4 I-team called the behavior grossly unprofessional. The teacher was charged with assault and fired. Yet the I-team found Fairfax schools failed to send in the paperwork to Virginia state officials as required to revoke the man's teaching license until 2012, 7 years later. Richard told us he thinks he knows why.
Their image, to keep it out of the news.
You don't think it might have been just an accident or an oversight?
No, they're avoiding transparency.
The I-team discovered what can happen when a school district fails to ensure a teacher who sexually exploits a kid loses his license. In 2004, Brad Norton, an English teacher in Fairfax, was arrested and pleaded guilty to assaulting a male student in his classroom. Fairfax County Public Schools notified Virginia Education Department officials it intended to revoke Norton's license to keep him from teaching again. But earlier this year, we found the school district didn't follow through. Norton's license remained intact for years, allowing him to land another teaching job in 2007 near Baltimore, where police arrested him a second time for sexually assaulting another student. He pleaded guilty to that crime, too. At the time, in a written statement, the school district said it was unaware of any other similar cases in the past decade. And Fairfax's then school superintendent told our David Culver the same thing.
How confident are you that no one else has fallen through the cracks?
Very confident.
Not only did we find Richard's case, though, the News 4 I-team found 2 more cases. 2 more Fairfax teachers who slipped through the cracks. What's more, we found the school district knew about them and didn't tell us the full story. It took them almost 5 years to provide the paperwork needed to cancel the license of an Annandale teacher who pleaded guilty to contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And then there's the case of another West Potomac High teacher charged with indecent exposure outside a local mall in 2004. Investigators said they found he had inappropriate photos of his female students, of their breasts and buttocks. It wasn't until a few months ago, 12 years after his arrest, his license was found languishing.
It's problematic if any school division has that situation.
And it wasn't found by Fairfax schools, but by Nancy Walsh, an investigator with the Virginia Department of Education in Richmond, who spotted the case while pulling records for our I-team report.
Is it problematic if licenses are let languishing for 6-7 years before they're revoked?
Definitely. If there is a basis for action against a license and any time passes before the action is taken, that whole interim period is troubling.
We wanted to know why these mistakes were being made over the past decade and asked Fairfax schools to talk to their current superintendent. Instead, they provided us a human resources official.
Do we know why it took years?
I've been here since January. I can't speak a lot to the previous practices. What I can tell you is about 2013, FCPS took a hard look at our processes, and from that point forward, we've been proactive in gathering the information on our end and then sending that to VDOE so they can make those decisions.
Chase Ramey couldn't tell us what happened in 2013 to cause the change.
We're again going through our records again to make sure that we are aware and that we provided all the appropriate information on all those cases. No, we do not believe there's any more of those cases in FCPS.
Would you be surprised if there were more out there we don't know about yet?
Oh, I expect it.
We haven't found out yet if any of these individuals were able to get new teaching jobs like Brad Norton did. He declined to comment about his case to the I-team, but we plan to keep digging, and if you know of any cases we should be investigating, send us an email by going to NBCWashington.com and clicking on Investigations. Jim and Dory, we will keep looking.
At the state capitol in Richmond tonight, new proposals to change state law because of a News 4 I-team investigation.
It's all to make it more difficult for teachers who've engaged in sexual misconduct with students to slip through the cracks and keep their teaching licenses. It's the latest fallout from a months-long investigation by Scott McFarland and our I-team.
The News 4 I-team uncovered 4 cases, 4 teachers in Fairfax County who admitted sexual misconduct with students, all between 2004 and 2006. And in each case, we found the school district waited at least 6 years before revoking their licenses. One of them, former Hayfield secondary teacher Brad Norton, managed in the meantime to find another teaching job in Maryland, and he admitted sexually assaulting another student there.
When I read and saw your report, it was like I was hit in the stomach.
State Senator Janet Howell questions how such a series of mistakes could be made by our area's largest school district.
It shows either terrible negligence or some sort of a desire or sympathy with the offenders.
Now Senator Howell is one of 2 state legislators formally proposing changes as the new state legislative session opens in Richmond. The senator has requested a budget and staffing increase inside the Virginia Department of Education to help state officials investigate whether other teachers have slipped through the cracks and to prevent it from happening again.
We take very seriously keeping the children of Virginia safe, and when something like this happens, we have to act.
State Delegate David Bulova wants a sweeping rules change too. Bulova is considering legislation to require school districts more quickly notify state licensing officials when they're investigating teachers for misconduct. School districts would be required to do so within a short period of time within launching an investigation of a potentially abusive teacher. Under current law, he says, schools must only do so within 10 days of a teacher being convicted of a crime.
And that provides problems from a bunch of different perspectives, but in particular, the concept that somebody has to be convicted. This is a professional license.
Some teachers who admit misconduct are never convicted of a crime, including one of the 4 cases we reviewed. A West Potomac High teacher who had inappropriate photos of his female students. Criminal charges were eventually dropped because the statute of limitations on the crime had expired. An internal Fairfax Schools memo from 2004 obtained by the I-Team shows the school district declared the man unfit to continue teaching. Yet they didn't get his license revoked until just 4 months ago. Bulova says state law has too many loopholes, allowing too many teacher license cases to languish.
I first heard this issue because of your report, and remember talking to my wife about it, thinking, geez Louise, this is our school system.
Fairfax County Public Schools couldn't answer how these mistakes were made, but said it is now being more proactive in how it handles the licenses of teachers who engage in misconduct. And they say there are no more such cases or mistakes. We'll keep checking and keep you posted on the progress of this newly proposed legislation. Scott McFarland, News 4 IT.
Every school district in Virginia now has to take action after a News 4 I-Team investigation. The State Board of Education is ordering districts to make sure they properly revoked the licenses of every teacher who's admitted to sexual misconduct with a student. As Scott McFarland reports, now it comes after the I-Team found Fairfax County schools allowed at least 4 teachers to fall through the cracks after misconduct with students.
Here at the state capitol in Richmond, the order today from state education officials is sweeping. It impacts every school district in the Commonwealth. The head of Virginia's Board of Education saw our I-Team investigation showing Fairfax County schools, the largest district in Virginia, allowed years to pass before sending in the necessary paperwork to revoke the licenses of at least 4 teachers who admitted misconduct with students. In one of those cases, English teacher Brad Norton of Hayfield Secondary, he managed to find a new teaching job in Maryland and later admitted sexually assaulting another student there, as his paperwork languished in Fairfax. At a state school board meeting today, board president Billy Canaday said he wants all Virginia districts to check their books for languishing cases.
This board feels very strongly that the actions that have been taken and the efforts that are being made now will ensure that children are safe and that we are timely in removing those who, again, abuse that right and privilege of being a teacher.
He also issued this memo to all school superintendents in Virginia, reminding them of their responsibility under state regulations to report suspected improprieties by teachers to the state.
Are you concerned it's possible there are revocation cases that are languishing elsewhere in Virginia?
There probably are, and we don't know about it. We hope that that's not the case, but we're going to err on the side of safety for children.
Fairfax County Public Schools told the I-Team it has become more proactive in how it handles teacher misconduct accusations and that there are no other languishing license cases. The father of a victim of one of those 4 Fairfax teachers told us he's worried there are.
Would you be surprised if there were more out there we don't know about yet?
Oh, I expect it.
Also here at the state capitol today, more fallout from our I-Team investigation, new legislation to beef up funding for the state education department to give them more staffers to investigate cases of possible teacher misconduct. At the Capitol, Scott McFarland, News 4 IT.
There is a new law in Virginia because of a News 4 I-Team investigation. It comes just a few weeks after Scott McFarland revealed how one local school district allowed several teachers to slip through the cracks.
Governor Terry McAuliffe signed that new law today. As Scott reports, it's an effort to ensure teachers who engage in misconduct with students are removed from the classroom.
The new law signed here at the state capitol makes a major change. School districts will be required to notify state investigators within 10 days of any suspected misconduct by a teacher. Under the old system, they didn't have to report suspected teacher misconduct until that teacher was convicted by a court, sometimes years later. Which is what happened in Fairfax County Public Schools, according to our I-Team investigation. The school district waited years before requesting licenses be pulled from a series of teachers who admitted sexual misconduct with students. In the meantime, at least one of those teachers managed to land a new teaching job in Maryland, where he later admitted sexually assaulting another student. In the days after our report, Virginia's legislature debated a bill to prevent such mistakes in the future.
There was a recent investigation by NBC4 in my area where they discovered that there were 4 teachers who had actually admitted to sexual misconduct with our students whose licenses weren't revoked in a timely manner.
That bill has passed, and Governor Terry McAuliffe has just signed it into law. It'll take effect in July.
If someone's license needs to be suspended or taken away, other jurisdictions ought to know that we have done that so people aren't moving around.
The governor says the Virginia Department of Education has long had experts on its team to help chase down and help revoke the licenses of teachers who sexually assault students. And he says what the I-Team found in Fairfax, the failure to ensure licenses of bad apples were revoked, was unacceptable.
For whatever reason they decided not to let us know, the good news is that will not continue. We have investigators. And all of us want to make sure our children are safe, and if there are teachers who may have committed some type of offense, we all need to know it.
And one other change, because of our News 4 I-Team investigation, the state has just approved a budget boost for the Virginia Department of Education to help the agency hire another full-time investigator to chase down potential teacher misconduct. At the state capitol, Scott McFarland, News 4 IT.
I love all my students and just absolutely stunned that, a student would actually make these accusations.
A teacher falsely accused of molesting a student. A jury found Sean Lanigan not guilty of sexual battery against a 6th grade girl 7 years ago.
But his name and his story made headlines coast to coast. And tonight, the News 4 I-Team has learned that Lanigan no longer allowed to teach in Virginia's public schools after another set of accusations.
An investigation by Scott McFarland reveals just weeks ago, Lanigan formally canceled his teaching license.
Months after winning a not guilty verdict in court.
When that judge read the verdict of not guilty of both charges, I felt like the world was off my shoulders.
Fairfax County Elementary School gym teacher Sean Lanigan went on TV to tell his side. Lanigan and his wife told a national audience they were shocked when a 6th grader from Center Ridge Elementary accused him of inappropriately touching her.
Of grabbing her boob and her rear end.
And that she made up the story, something a jury had agreed with. After his acquittal, Lanigan began teaching phys ed elsewhere in Fairfax County, at South Lakes High in Reston. But 7 years after the trial and the not guilty verdict, there is trouble again for the popular phys ed teacher, according to an internal investigation by Fairfax County Public Schools, which was obtained by the I-Team. In this 2015 report, internal school investigators looked into reports inside South Lakes High that Lanigan had run his finger up the inner thigh of a 15-year-old sophomore, that he was seen by colleagues holding hands with girls, talking to one about a vibrator, calling another his girlfriend, tripping a student, using inappropriate language, and talking to boys about a girl's body parts. The school district memo says Lanigan denied these accusations, but says fellow students or teachers corroborated them. It also says Lanigan admitted allowing students to access confidential files in his computer. According to state records, in July 2016, Lanigan quit. And a few weeks ago, he formally completed the process of canceling his teaching license with the state, acknowledging he did so in response to Fairfax County's petition to revoke it. Based on the findings of that school district investigation, he did not admit to those findings.
Does it surprise you that his teaching license was just canceled?
It surprises me that it took so long.
This former student, who asked we call her Sarah, says she first complained about Lanigan back in the 1990s when he was her gym teacher.
What kind of touching was it?
It was mostly in my shoulders or my arms or like huggy.
She says Lanigan made sexual comments.
On your birthday, what did he say to you?
That I should run the mile in my birthday suit
In phys ed class.
in phys ed class.
In a Washington Post article 5 years ago, Lanigan responded to that same accusation by saying he was joking that the girl had come to class without her gym uniform. Sarah says her mother filed a formal complaint and pulled the girl from Lanigan's class.
It was something that was happening to all the girls.
As a man, I'm glad he doesn't have a teaching license anymore.
Ray Murrow, Fairfax County's top prosecutor, says law enforcement was notified of the new accusations against Lanigan in 2015 inside South Lakes High, but that the families involved did not pursue criminal charges.
We knew that there were some incidents over there. I don't know if we had all the specifics, but I know the police were in touch with some of the families.
Lanigan declined our request for an interview and instead issued a written statement which said, in part, "I have 18 years of experience teaching and I have never inappropriately touched a student. However, after the trial, when I returned to teaching, tension remained between the school system and me, and after 5 years, although I still enjoyed teaching, I decided to move on with my life and surrendered my teaching license." The files detailing what he was accused of in 2015 are kept private in Fairfax County, and only by requesting his records through state officials via the Freedom of Information Act did we learn about the new accusations.
I mean, he was very playful. Yeah.
How so?
Like he would always like go up to girls, tickle them, or like pick them up, swing them around.
Even the young girl who faced off with Lanigan at trial in court, who's now 19 years old, says she never knew what happened to Lanigan after his acquittal.
Nobody told you he was teaching again?
No.
Nobody told you he was back in front of kids?
No.
About that 2010 trial and that young woman, Lanigan, in his written statement to News 4, said there was absolutely no truth to it. The girl making the accusations had the opportunity to testify, and her testimony was found not at all credible. In fact, he says the jury took only 47 minutes to come back with their unanimous verdict of not guilty. Coming up tonight at 11, our investigation continues. We look at why D.C., Maryland, and Virginia differ from many states in how much information they provide publicly about teachers who have their licenses revoked or canceled.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a News 4 I-Team investigation. Dozens of teachers in the D.C. region have been accused of misconduct in recent years. Their licenses revoked or canceled because of it.
You can easily find their names online, but the I-Team discovered you can't readily see what those teachers are accused of doing to lead to that result.
Tonight, Scott McFarland and the I-Team show us how Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. trail other states in just how much they reveal to the public about teachers.
Nearly 70 local teachers have had their licenses revoked or canceled since the beginning of 2016. Sean Lanigan is one of them. You might recall seeing Lanigan on NBC's Today Show in 2011.
When that judge read the verdict of not guilty of both charges, felt like the world was off my shoulders.
Describing what it was like to be a teacher falsely accused of sexually assaulting a student.
I love all my students and just absolutely stunned that, a student would actually make these accusations.
7 years ago, the Fairfax County teacher was found not guilty in a trial that captured national attention. He said the girl who accused him made up her story, and a jury agreed with him.
The News 4 I-Team found Lanigan recently faced more accusations. This internal at Fairfax School's investigation reveals what he was accused of inside South Lakes High School, where he was employed until last summer as a gym teacher.
The school district said he was seen or heard making lewd comments to students, holding hands with girls, calling one his girlfriend, and running his finger up the inner thigh of a 15-year-old sophomore. In part of a statement to News 4, Lanigan said, "I have 18 years of experience teaching, and I've never inappropriately touched a student." However, after the trial, when I returned to teaching, tension remained between the school system and me. And after 5 years, although I still enjoyed teaching, I decided to move on with my life and surrendered my teaching license. The I-Team found he formally canceled his license a few weeks ago.
Does it surprise you that his teaching license was just canceled?
It surprises me that it took so long.
This student, who asked us to call her Sarah, said she filed a formal complaint against Lanigan back in the 1990s, accusing him of making lewd comments when he was her gym teacher, including a reference to her birthday suit. She called it inappropriate and sexual. Lanigan, in a 2012 Washington Post article, addressed that same accusation, calling it a joke. There's no easy way for Sarah or anyone to easily determine what led to the cancellations or revocations of licenses of Sean Lanigan or dozens of other teachers in our area. That's because Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. do not post the reasons or the orders describing the allegations that caused a teacher license revocation, like many states do, including South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Instead, our local states list only the names and the dates in which the licenses were pulled. Fairfax County's top prosecutor says that is a problem.
When things happen that are of concern, I think the information needs to be passed out. Parents need to have it. We need more transparency in that respect to keep our children safe.
Inside the Virginia Department of Education, spokesman Charles Pyle says school districts and state education departments are sharing this information with each other and doing so in real time to ensure teachers whose licenses are revoked or canceled can't get jobs at other public schools in Virginia or other states.
Once that license is canceled, that fact, the cancellation, is going to be shared with all 132 school districts in the state and all chief state school officers in the nation.
But not with parents, unless they type up a formal request under the Freedom of Information Act for each and every name they want to check.
I think people should know that information. I mean, we send our kids to school, and the first thing we expect is that they'll be safe.
And D.C. and Maryland don't even publicly list the names of teachers who've had their licenses revoked or canceled. And a spokesman for Maryland State Teachers Union said, quote, "A website that indefinitely shames people who've been already removed, in many cases after being falsely accused, does not make kids safer. Instead, we need to focus on prevention by setting high standards for entry to the profession." But Jim and Doreen will see if this isn't a public policy debate in the coming days.
Yeah, a lot of parents are going to be disturbed, if not surprised, by this. All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
The News 4 I-Team is working for you tonight. Local parents can now find more information about predators in the classroom.
And that's a direct result of the I-Team's investigation uncovering weaknesses in how some Maryland and Virginia schools deal with teachers accused of misconduct with students. Scott McFarland joins us with how even more changes are being ordered to better protect our children. Scott?
That's right, Doreen. For months, the News 4 I-Team has investigated local teachers who admitted sexual misconduct, yet managed to slip through the cracks, escaping with their teaching licenses intact, in some cases for years, and in at least one case, even finding work teaching again. Because of our reporting, Virginia stiffened its laws to better track law-breaking teachers. Now both Virginia and Maryland are poised for another big change. 12 years ago, this Fairfax County dad lived through a crisis no parent wants to face. His daughter's English teacher was charged with assault after the teen and classmates accused the teacher of inappropriately touching them.
She had the least of the problems with the guy. Her friends got it worse.
The West Potomac High School educator lost his job and his teaching license, but other parents and neighbors might never know it, partly because the school district didn't publicly announce the teacher's fate.
Their image, to keep it out of the news.
But also because parents in Virginia don't get to know why hundreds of teachers in the Commonwealth have their licenses revoked or canceled, even when it's for sexual misconduct. All they can find, if they know where to search, is a list of names.
This is an issue that concerns me, both as a lawmaker and also as a parent.
Virginia State Delegate Mark Keem says the state education department is not giving parents enough information.
What we don't know, though, is what are the reasons? What are the specifics? And so sometimes you might kind of guess based on rumors and innuendo, but it would be really nice if we actually had the facts.
Citing our investigation, Delegate Keem has asked the state to consider expanding what it tells the public to detail the reasons a license is revoked, like other states, including Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and South Carolina do. Doing so would make the teacher easier to background for any parent or future employer.
The state, in a formal letter, has just agreed to review and potentially change its policies. The I-Team found Maryland offered even less information. For years, there was no public listing of teachers who had their licenses revoked. No way for parents or neighbors to track what happened to a suspected bad apple. Until the I-Team brought it to the attention of the head of the Montgomery County Council Education Committee, who called it unacceptable.
The reality is that we want more information to be out there. We know that our parents, that our community leaders, that our folks in local government who are doing hiring, we want to make it easier for them to be able to make well-informed decisions.
Councilmember Craig Rice then made a formal request to the Maryland Department of Education to change its policies. And within days, it happened.
We began posting this information in the interest of better informing the public about serious actions taken against educator licenses in the state.
Maryland State Superintendent of Schools ordered the posting of a list of teachers from whom licenses have been stripped, including when and why.
We'll make sure that we have a great teacher in front of every student in every classroom in the state of Maryland.
We have compiled and posted these new resources for parents in our NBC Washington app. If you go to the investigations page, you'll see a section called Slipping Through the Cracks. There you can search, truly search by teachers' names and by teachers' school districts. Jim and Dory.
Great work, Scott.